Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rest, Reset, and Reflect. My name is Nyam Adadwaji. I'm a former product manager turned sabbatical coach and writer, and I work with mid-career techies to help them create intuitive, joyful, and creative career breaks as a means of reconnecting to themselves and realigning with their values. So, welcome. Glad to have you all here. So, just before we dive into things, as y'all know, if you've hung out with me or maybe you don't know, I typically, as part of these times, have a brief time of kind of grounding meditation, 10-15 minutes. We're going to do that at the end of today's conversation. And today's conversation, I'm excited to have with Erika Ho, who is a financial and fire coach. And she'll kind of explain a little bit more about what that is and means. But we're really having a conversation about options for becoming work optional. How do you, if you're feeling trapped by those golden handcuffs in tech, how do you escape them? And really, how do you start to live now versus waiting for a retirement that really is not necessarily promised? So, if that's your jam, if you feel intrigued, join us, hang out. And this is recorded. So you can also, if you're not able to stay for the whole thing, join us then. And so with that, I am going to kick it off to you, Erika. We'd love to hear who you are and a bit about your story regarding financial independence, and also just to learn more about what is the FIRE movement and how does that connect with your story.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nam, for having me. I'm so excited to be here to talk about financial independence and my own journey. For those of you that have never heard of financial independence or FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. And it's kind of challenging societal expectations of, going to college, getting a job, and working until you're 65 or 70, retiring, and then having maybe like 10 years and then you pass away. And so the FIRE movement really challenges that assumption and that way of life and says, why don't we save early, change our spending patterns so that we can actually hit retirement age at age like 30 or 40. So that's the FIRE movement. My own story and my journey started a while back. Actually, I had an aunt who works for the IRS, and she sat me down and just told me on the phone when I was starting out working. She was like, "Oh, you should max out your 401k," And I remember chatting with a coworker about it, and she was like, "That's so extreme." And we weren't making a lot of money at that time, so it was a huge sacrifice. But I listened to my aunt, and that was kind of like my starting path to investing, just in a typical 401k program and living within my means. So that was kind of step one. And then during the pandemic, I got really into the FIRE movement through finding out about it on YouTube. So there's this couple, Amon and Christina Browning. They started their YouTube channel called Our Rich Journey, and they would post videos about financial independence, retire early, and how to invest and stuff like that. So I got super into that, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then actually, when I worked at Google, I became even more obsessed with financial independence, retire early, because I was feeling really stuck and unfulfilled and kind of like trapped in golden handcuffs, is what Jan was saying earlier, and feeling like, okay, like this is the only way, I need to stay here and work my data science job. And so financial independence, retire early was kind of an escape for me. So I would, like, in my off times, just watch so many YouTube videos on financial independence. Yeah, and then when I got laid off from Google, that was also part of the journey of kind of figuring out and carving out my own path.
Mm,
Switching from a career in data analytics for the last 10 years and feeling like actually I want to help people with their personal finances and I want to help people in their fire journey. And actually, through that process, I kind of had an aha moment of like, oh, actually, I'm work optional now. Like
mm,
of like, I don't need to reach my fire number in the Bay Area because we actually aren't planning to stay in the Bay Area longer. I had an aha moment when I was in Taiwan traveling with my family of like, okay, if we're open to moving to different places like Taiwan or Portugal, we've actually hit our Taiwan and Portugal fire numbers. So at
mm.
any given point in time, we can retire now, right?
Yeah.
Which was like mind blowing for me. I was like, wait, I thought you had to like reach that fire and like, like get to like 5 million in investments and stuff like that. And I was like, that's going to take so long. But when I was in Taiwan, I had this aha moment of like, actually, if you're seriously considering moving abroad or moving to cheaper cost of living area, and you would be open to doing that, you can actually reach financial independence now. Yeah. And
Mm,
that was like so surreal for me because I had been in the fire movement for so long and feeling like, oh, I need to just get more and more.
yeah.
Um, but it's about not just working hard, but working smart and being like, okay, like what are my options? Do I need to necessarily stay in a high cost of living area?
Mm.
For life, right? Or can I have some flexibility, some creativity? So that's kind of my journey. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many beautiful threads in that journey, and there are 2 moments in particular I'm curious about. So one, there's the moment of, what it sounds like where you were feeling like kinda, like, unhappy and miserable, and so that sounds like it was like a doorway for you getting even deeper into fire. And then there was this moment of, when you're traveling in Taiwan, you realize like, "Oh, wait, like, hello." Like, so, in terms of the first moment of how you got deeper into, um, the fire movement, when you were in that unhappy place, what were you envisioning and hoping for that kind of work optionality would give you?
Right. So I think when I was at Google, I had like depression symptoms and stuff like that. And I was just so unhappy. And I was like, I just need to get out. Like,
Mm,
and I
yeah.
need an exit. I need to get out of here. And how do I get out of here? And I felt like fire was my sort of like escape, sort
Mhm.
of like coping mechanism of like, if I just watch more fire videos, if I just save more money, then I can reach fire, right? And I remember at that time, like calculating my fire number and for the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shoot, like it's going to take at least 10 years if we don't have kids, right?
Mhm, yeah, yeah.
And so, one, we are planning to have kids, but two, it was just like, I can't wait another 10 years.
Mm, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I can't stay in this job that I'm miserable at for another 10 years. And I
Mhm,
know a lot of people who feel that way,
yeah.
right? Of like, I have to just keep on doing this. And for me, I'm just like, no, you don't have to. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay miserable. You don't have to stay unfulfilled. Like,
Mm,
this isn't the only path,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I love that, and I appreciate that, invitation and awareness that you don't have to stay miserable and you don't have to stay stuck, and I resonate with it in terms of I was at a similar place before I decided to take my sabbatical where I'd kind of, I still was working in tech at digital agencies in another round of burnout. And I, was kind of figuring out like, okay, like what do I want to do? And I do remember at one point I'd been thinking about, I was also in the Bay Area at the time. I thought, oh, well, like maybe I want to like try to buy a place here. But I played it out and I was like, if I buy a place here, then like I'm gonna need to like stay in these really high paying jobs that like are crushing my soul. So I was like, well, as much as I would love to have kind of my own little place, I was like, I don't want to lock myself in like that, right? So I think what it's highlighting for both of us, right, is that there's this, I think sometimes folks can get stuck in the like, I just feel miserable, but I just kind of have to like grind it out versus like, well, what are your other options, right? And right, there are always trade-offs
Right.
to making the change, but it's like you do have options. You don't just have to like grind it out and make it work. Um, and then I would love to dig into a little bit more this, I mean, the experience of retiring earlier, becoming work optional. I think a lot of people daydream about it, like, oh, like man, like imagine, like you don't have to log in or go to work, and I have kind of my own mini experience of that for my sabbatical. But why? Can you share some of your experience? What's that like for you? What are your days like, and how's the experience been for you?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, it's like surreal to reach work optional status because to me, that was always the dream, right? To be work optional, to reach financial independence, right? And I think for me, what financial independence means is that I get to kind of carve out my own path and like start my own business, right? If I was still in tech and feeling like, oh, I need to like reach like fat fire is what they call it, right? Of this like huge fire number in the Bay Area and stuff like that, then I would still be in tech and be like, okay, like I'm miserable, I'm unhappy. But like being your own boss is so amazing. You get to have flexibility in how you spend your time. There's no one giving you assignments, right? You kind of create your own sort of path, your own system, and stuff like that. And I would say being financially independent also helps us to be there for the people that we love and care about most. So, for example, my mother-in-law had stage 4 cancer, and so she was really sick, and me and my husband were able to go to Southern California and stay there until she passed. And we wouldn't have that flexibility if we were both still in tech.
Yeah.
Um, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to spend so much time with her.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that is like really one of the huge things about financial independence, right? You can really be there for your family in other ways that you wouldn't have been able to do if you were still kind of like stuck in the 9 to 5. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that perspective and experience because perhaps maybe folks think mostly about the number,
Mhm.
right? Or the financial aspect of it. But really, I feel like it's like a pathway to how do you give yourself the ultimate freedom to prioritize your life and what's important to you, right? So being like, I mean, that's priceless to be able to spend that time with your mother-in-law, to be able to be present to her in that time. And I think even what you mentioned about the opportunity then to focus on business, right? That's a way for you to get to be in alignment and serve and do work that matches your values and matches your vision. And so I think there's something I think there's something about, at least if from my perspective, I think maybe it aligns with yours, that like financial independence isn't about It's not just about like, I just want to have a fat stack of cash. It's about I want to be able to live my life and be present to my life and the people in it and the people I love in the fullest way possible, right?
Mhm,
So I really appreciate that perspective that you've offered on that.
mhm,
And I'll also share too, because I know you'd mentioned maybe there were a couple of folks in your audience who are interested in the career break aspect of that.
mhm,
Um, I think, maybe if you're someone you're curious about, work optionality, but maybe it feels a little it feels a little bit scary, like, I don't know, it's not because it is, it's a big
it
decision.
is, yeah.
Um, I feel like a sabbatical or career break is a beautiful way to test drive it
Mhm, mhm,
because, okay, take an intentional chunk of time outside of the workforce and see how it feels. See how it feels to not need to go to an office, not need to log in every day, to be able to be present to your life, your family, different types of work, development in a different type of way.
mhm.
Um, there are, I feel like for a lot of people who take sabbaticals, it is a pathway to fire because people are like, oh, and it was for me. You're like, wait a second, this is very nice.
I want this life.
Wait a second more. And not for everybody, right? But I think it's a good way to test drive the experience before kind of going all in.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, what that looked like was because I was having depression symptoms when I was at Google, I went on medical leave. And when I was on medical leave, I did this intensive outpatient program where
Mhm.
you have like group therapy, meditation classes, yoga classes. So I had like a lot of support and therapy going on for me. And so that was kind of like my mini sabbatical. And I think when you're at your day job and in survival mode, it's impossible to like dream and like think about what is your vision for your life because you're like, no, I have to do this. I have to do this, right? But going on medical leave was an area of pause for me that it opened up my horizons. And people at the program, they were telling me like, you're so miserable at your job. And I was like, I am? Like, really? I think I can continue. And they're like, no, like you always like cry when you talk about work. And so that was an opener. And then when I was on medical leave, I actually realized that I had a change in values. So
Mhm.
initially, in my kind of career growth, I really valued prestige and stability. And then I realized that after I was like, actually, I really value contribution instead and helping other people. And so when I realized that I had that value change, I was like, okay, like what are some careers that can help people. And at that time, I was super passionate about mental health. So I was like, okay, maybe I can like become a therapist. And so I went down that journey of like talking to therapists, getting informational interviews. I applied for grad school, got in, got the scholarship. And that whole experience and discernment journey actually helped me to open up my horizons
Mm,
because ultimately I didn't go ahead and become a therapist.
yeah.
But had I not discerned becoming a therapist, I wouldn't have gone to financial coaching.
Mm.
Yeah, because back then I was so like stuck and I'm like data science is the only way, data analytics is the only
Yeah.
way. I've been doing this. I have to do it, right? But then having some time to pause and reflect
Mm.
allowed me to open up my horizons and dream and think about like, okay, what is the life that I want to build?
Yeah, yeah. And I'd like to touch into that a little bit, like so you mentioned that the exploration around being a therapist actually led you to be a financial coach. What was the connection point between that?
Yeah. So, like therapy and financial coaching are similar in the sense that we deal a lot with psychology.
Mm, mhm, mhm.
And I would say like becoming a therapist was something that was so like outside of what I would normally think about,
Yeah.
right? And like being a financial coach is also something that's like, whoa, like I never would have dreamed of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was something that was out there. And so when I discerned becoming a therapist, then it was like, oh, like this is scary,
Mhm.
but exciting. And when I thought about financial coaching later on, it was scary, but also exciting.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, the psychology piece was what was interesting to me because actually in college, I studied marketing.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
was all about how do you use psychology to sell people things?
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want to use psychology to help people, right? And so, therapy obviously is all about psychology and like your thoughts and your behaviors and your actions, right? And then financial coaching has a huge aspect of psychology in it, right? I think Dave Ramsey says personal finance is 20% head knowledge and 80% behavior. So a lot about personal finance is changing the way that you think and changing your spending behaviors
Mm.
so that you can get to financial independence sooner, right? And it's not just about the numbers and the spreadsheets. Yes, that is a part of it, but it's all about psychology. And that's what's like fascinating and so interesting because some people are like, oh, like personal finance is so boring. Like you just, spend less, earn more. That's all you do. But like every person is so different.
Mm.
Everyone has their own money story, their relationship with money that makes the work so fascinating and so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, money is so profound in that it is one of the things that impacts all of us, right? Like we all need to make money, have money in some way. We need it to live.
Yeah.
And you're so right that we each have our own money stories, and that impacts, I would say that it impacts our quality of life. And for me, I found in my money story, I mean, even in entrepreneurship, needing to unravel a lot around my relationship to money, in order to make money through my business. And so it makes sense that, what you're saying, that you're kind of were like, oh, I want to use psychology to help people, not to sell people things. And then that it's such a beautiful bridge into financial coaching, because you can use so much of that to help people navigate their money stories. Um, and I'm curious with that as well. So with your clients, what do you find are the money stories that come up? What are the barriers that come up when they start considering or entering the journey towards financial independence or being work optional?
Yeah. So I have
Mm.
some clients, and this is true in my own life, that we have immigrant parents,
Mhm.
right? And so our parents immigrated from, Taiwan, China, Korea, etc. And they didn't have very much growing,
Mm. Mhm.
right? I remember, my mom was telling me that for birthdays, they would get like an egg in their meal, right? And that was like the celebration, right? Of
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
oh, we get an egg, you know. And so I would say there's a lot to unpack there because when you come from an experience of being an immigrant and like living in a poor area, right? You have this fear like, oh, I'm going to run out of money,
Mm.
right? And so what I see in some of my clients is that they actually have plenty of money,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they're worried that they're going to run out of money,
Yeah.
right? And that is a big challenge, but a big opportunity to try to, one, be aware of that money story to
Yeah.
begin with, but then to kind of shift that mindset of like, you know, I'm not where my parents used to be,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
I might have maybe learned from some of their frugal ways, but I myself will not run out of money.
mhm, mhm.
So I think that is something that um, that needs to be worked on, especially if you have something like immigrant parents or a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's so important to bring it to the surface
Mhm,
because for I don't to say a lot of us, we're not actually conscious of our relationship to money,
mhm,
and and it is complex, right? Like, it's also not just our individual or even family relationship to money, it's also how that, you know, socioeconomically, how things are playing out, right? Like, and how, you as an individual and your culture, and race kind of fits into also, like, the economics and how your community may have been, impacted. Um, but I think there comes to be a lot of power when we realize the money stories that we are subconsciously, um, running on, because then we have the power to rewrite them.
mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and the thing that what you'd mentioned brought to mind was it was in my mind, and then it left the money stories that we have. The what I was gonna say is that, because I've sometimes, kind of been on these Reddit threads, like the fire Reddit threads, and people are like, "I have like $5 million. Do you think that's like enough money to retire?" Like, oh my gosh, like, and I think it's interesting because, like, like,
Oh, sorry,
like,
you're cutting out for me. You're cutting out for me. Yeah. Okay, now it works again. Yeah, I
okay.
didn't I didn't get like the last like 20 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I was saying, the folks in the Reddit thread that are like, "Oh, I have like $5 million. Like, is that enough?" And there's certainly the money story aspect, and I think there's also some of the broader cultural stories happening, because I think, at least in U.S. culture, I think we are heavily socialized to be workers and to, like,
Mhm.
be in connection to work. And so I think there's also some of that, like, because I've also heard of people in the fire movement, again, with like really high numbers like that,
Mhm.
still being like, okay, but like I can't stop working yet because, like, you know, um, and so I'm curious too, do you see that, where is that another vein that you see working with your clients of, like, people who, they definitely have plenty, but, like, there's also, they're kind of navigating their relationship to work?
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like in America, like the default question that you ask when you first meet someone is like, what do you do?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's all about productivity. It's all about making money. It's all about work. And I feel like there's kind of this um, identity, strong
Mhm.
identity related to work. Like,
Mhm.
who am I without work? you
Yeah.
know, right? It's just like, and I see that in myself too, of like, I tend to like monetize all my hobbies.
Yeah.
you know, I love drawing. I did an Etsy
Mhm.
store. I
Mhm.
love YouTube. I started a YouTube channel, right? Like, I think there's such a extreme focus on work in America, and it makes it hard to walk away.
Yeah.
Because you'll hear like some people, they hit their fire number and then they're like, oh, I'm bored. And they go back to work right away.
Mm.
Or maybe people have plenty of money to retire now,
Yeah.
but then they keep working anyway because they're like, oh, I just want to accumulate more. I want to save more. What if this happens? What if this happens?
Yeah.
Right. And I find that it's just like within the fire space, there's a huge psychological component, right? It's
Mhm.
not just about hitting the number in the spreadsheet, right?
Yeah.
That's part one. But
Yeah.
then the other part is like designing the life that you want to build now that you have hit this number,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I had a client, she was basically like 2 years from full fire,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And realizing like, oh, like I actually don't need to reach financial independence right away. I'm going to slow down my timeline intentionally so
Mhm.
I can start building the life that I want to live.
Mhm.
And so she's like taking architecture
Mhm.
classes, looking
Mhm.
into master's programs, right? So I think it's like it's not just about hitting the number and the Excel spreadsheet that's like, oh, aha, and like everything is solved now that I've hit that number, right? It's a complete mindset shift that you have.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's so powerful and important to know because and I think it overlaps actually a lot with people taking sabbaticals too.
Mhm.
Because maybe similar to right, so, like, with financial independence, maybe people can just think, "Okay, if I hit once I hit this number, then boom, like, everything's solved." Same with, like, a sabbatical, like, people can think, like, "Okay, like, once I, take this 6 months or a year off or something, like, everything's gonna be, solved." But then it's like, "Oh, like, now actually kind of the real work begins," because, these other deeper aspects emerge, right, of, "Oh, yeah, who am I without, work?" Or, what do I actually want?"
Mm.
Or yeah, or I'm bored. Like, I don't have a life outside of I don't have a life outside of work. Or even, especially now in the times that we're in, people like being able to like embrace being bored, that it's like we actually don't need to be stimulated like every moment of the day. So there's this, both with taking a career break, it sounds like, with financial independence journey, this aspect of how how do you shift it from just kind of the mechanics and logistics of
Mhm.
it to how do you open it as a pathway to, connecting into what you want and what's important to you and how you start now shifting your life to be like that versus again like what we were saying before of like I'm just gonna stay on this one path and maybe it'll be at 65 and maybe I have the energy to do, the things that I want to do. So it's yeah, it's amazing how much internal work it invites you into.
Mhm. Yeah. And the thing is, like, people assume, they're going to do that job until they're 65 or 70. But one, you don't know if you're going to live that long.
Sure.
And two, especially for us and our clients in tech, right? You might not have that job
Mhm.
until you're 65 or 70, right? They might lay you off
Yeah.
way before then, right? So like what are you going to do if like because that assumption is really shaky, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it also speaks to I mean, why I think in the moment we're in, I feel like definitely you can assume that you won't have a job when you're 65. Like just already throw that assumption out the window, right? And I think it also speaks to this notion of kind of with the life design, how do you also start cultivating stability from the inside out?
Mhm.
Meaning like, either, with the money story of like, I'm gonna run out of money, or, even if you are still working, like, the risk of being laid off, of things being so uncertain right now is how do you how do you shift your mindset in terms of what stability is and how you create it for yourself and your family. I'm curious if that's how do you work with your clients in terms of that? And
In terms of like shifting the mindset from like scarcity mindset to abundance mindset and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah, and kind of like thinking about you know,
You know,
oh, did I deep out again?
oh
Can
no,
you
you're still here. You're still here.
okay. Yeah, and then thinking about, like, with that shift from scarcity to abundant mindset, how do you help them, cultivate a sense of stability from
Mm.
within themselves?
Right, right. Yeah. I think a lot of like mindset work is related to kind of what they teach in like therapy, right? Of, you have your thoughts, and then from those thoughts, you have your feelings and emotions, and then you have your actions,
Mhm.
right? So it's kind of like first of all gaining awareness of what your thoughts are like, and what we talked about earlier, like what are your money stories of like I'm going to run out of money, or I never have enough, or yeah. So I think it's kind of using what we know about psychology to kind of shift that mindset, whether that's journaling or meditation and reflecting. And I also have my clients write out their dreams. So
Mhm.
there's a dream framework that I learned from the women's school, and it's looking at systematically thinking about your dreams, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't know what my dreams are, right? And
Yeah.
there's this framework that they have from the women's school that has you write out all of your dreams. So
Mhm.
there's possible dreams, stretch dreams, and impossible dreams.
Mhm.
And writing them out in those different categories is really powerful, because a lot of people don't have awareness of what their dreams are,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And as you kind of build that muscle of dreaming and have awareness, then you can start tackling your possible dreams, and then your stretch dreams start to look like possible dreams.
Mhm.
Impossible dreams start to look like stretch dreams, right? So I feel like it's a really powerful exercise that I have my clients do multiple times. And I actually do it personally in my life with my husband sometimes. So I think one, awareness of your thought patterns and your beliefs and your actions, right? But also systematically dreaming, so that you're not just waiting until you hit your retirement number
Yeah.
to dream. You want to start dreaming now and building up that muscle.
Yeah. I love that, a dream muscle. Yes. It's so powerful. And so will want to invite, if there are folks gathered and you have questions or comments, feel free to pop them in. And as folks potentially do that, I'd love to invite, if so, for, we've talked about a number of things. If there are people who are curious about financial independence or want to start the journey, how would you recommend that they start?
Yeah. I would say a great starting point is how I learned about fire first, which is YouTube, right? It's a free resource. I actually have my own YouTube channel, so feel free to check out my YouTube channel. It's at Holy Path to Fire. And I specifically speak to people in tech who feel trapped in golden handcuffs and want a financial exit plan. So, yeah, YouTube is a good starting point. I think if you are at a point where you know you are unhappy, unfulfilled, stuck, right, and you want an exit plan ASAP, definitely book a call with me. I do a free 30-minute free consultation call with me, just to talk about what you're going through and how to craft a financial exit plan to get you out of there ASAP.
Mhm.
I think for me on my fire journey, I did a fire program, and I had people that had reached fire themselves look at my fire plan and give me feedback. And I found that to be super valuable. So having someone that has reached financial independence themselves look at your plan, give you feedback, give you action items. That is super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that too because it also takes it out of the realm of just thinking about it, and it's like, just start, taking action towards it, right? It doesn't mean that you in right now in this moment, or tomorrow are gonna go into your job and be like, "I hate this," like, "I quit," but it's like, as I continue to learn and coach people on, it's the clarity comes from taking action. It doesn't come from thinking about it over and over and over.
Yeah, you're just in that thought spiral, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that also will probably make you just yeah, kind of like, oh, like more frustrated because you're just going over and over in your head. And when you also, I like too that you bring up, being a part of a program or connecting with other people who are also on that journey and maybe further along because you're connecting into community, right? Because it is, and be curious your thoughts. I feel like it is still something that's not I mean, it's countercultural, right? So, as I was mentioning to you before we hopped on that, right, like when I was, probably in my early 30s, and I remember meeting a couple, who was pursuing financial independence, and I just couldn't compute in my mind. That I was like, okay, what are you talking about? Right? So how do you find other people who have that shared vision and goal so that
Mhm.
you're not just trying to like navigate against the cultural waters by yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like community is so important. What I talk about is like who is your financial family, right?
Mm,
Because some people in their biological family didn't have people teach them about money.
mhm,
And so you need to build that community of like people that have reached financial independence themselves, or like you said, are further on in the journey, and then also people that are behind you so then you can help lift them up, right? And journey together, right? Versus feeling like, oh, I need to do everything on my own, like that's impossible. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's really important to know because again, another strong American American cultural aspect is this sense of like individual hyper individualism, right? So that it's like, oh, you just have to do it by yourself, and even no, even with the financial aspect, that it's like everything you just need to figure it out by yourself and sort of, stumble along. But it's like you don't have to do it by yourself, right? There are other people who are on the journey. There are other people who can support you on it. And I think that that's another powerful principle, right? Because community, because yeah, I just firmly believe we can't do life. We're not meant to do life by ourselves. And yet all the more so when we're seeking to live lives that are values aligned, even more so you need to tap into relationships and other people who are also seeking to live in a way that's aligned with values, so that you kind of have that collective stamina to move together.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the fire program that I did, the alumni of the program went to Portugal together. Um,
Oh,
and it was so cool to be in community with people that are passionate about financial independence. And I remember we were at a restaurant and we talked for hours, right?
mhm.
Because when you meet people that have similar values, that are going towards the path that you are, I feel like it's just so powerful, right? And you're like, there's so much to talk about, and you feel like instant connection. And you feel like, wow, like they understand a part of me that maybe my family and friends back home don't understand. So I found that to be super, super powerful.
Yes, yes. So connect into community. I would also say the same thing of Again, if you're not ready to do the, full financial independence route and you're trying out the career break sabbatical route, also highly recommend connecting into community. There are resources. Katrina McGee, who was on the LinkedIn Live last week, she has a community with her business partner that is breaks-based community. That it's a community for people taking career breaks. So it's like get connected to the folks who are on that same path, and don't struggle alone. It's not necessary.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, before we kind of transition into our meditation, are there any final words or thoughts that you want to offer to folks?
Ooh, final thoughts or words. Yeah, I would say do it scared is what I've heard some people say, right? I think financial independence can be scary,
Mhm.
and can feel kind of outside your comfort zone. But start taking just little actions now, right? Like spend like 2 minutes on your budget every day or something like that. I think um, when you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, take messy action. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just do a little bit at a time. So that's what I would advise people to do.
I love that. Yeah. Do it scared, do it messy, do it imperfectly. The action still counts.
Action still counts. That's right.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for the conversation. And happy to have you join us as we meditate. Feel free to keep the camera on or off, whatever is more comfortable for you. And for everybody following along, I invite you to, wherever you are, find a comfortable spot. So maybe you are at the office. Can you find a little private corner? If you're at home, maybe find a quiet room or space, and inviting you to either sit. If you're at home, maybe you have the option to lie down on a couch or a bed or even the floor. And when you feel like you're kind of settled into a good position, maybe you want to give an exhale, maybe you want to do a final shake. Just inviting you, when it feels okay, to close your eyes or keep a soft gaze. And here I just invite you to gently start to notice your breath. There's nothing that you need to do or change. Just notice how it feels for your chest to rise and fall. Notice how it feels for that life to move inside of you. And as you continue to notice your breath, I invite you to notice if there's any way that you want to position your body or place your hands that helps you feel more settled and grounded. So maybe you want to gently sway back and forth. Maybe you want to place your hand on your heart. Just inviting you to notice what helps you feel more grounded and steady in this moment. And as you tune into that sense of grounding, I invite you to notice where your body is making contact with a chair, maybe feet on the floor, maybe you're lying down and it's your back on the surface. And I invite you to see how you can sink even deeper into these points of contact. Are you carrying something that feels heavy? And can you let it release into the surface that's holding you? Can you let yourself be even 1% more heavy, trusting that these surfaces are holding you up? And as you sink into these surfaces, I want to invite you to gently bring your awareness to your heart, tuning into what feels alive here. Does your heart feel heavy? Does it feel light? Maybe it even feels numb. Just inviting the whole spectrum of experience in this space. And as you notice your heart and heart space, I invite you to take any movements, big or small, that this area calls for. Maybe you want to roll your shoulders back. Maybe you want to take a twist. Or maybe there's more subtle movement. Maybe you just want to breathe more deeply into your chest and heart area. You're welcome to do whatever this part of your body is calling for. And as you continue tuning into your heart space, I invite you to gently bring your awareness to your base, your sacrum, your pelvic area. And here, maybe you want to breathe into your left hip. Maybe you want to breathe into your right hip. And coming into an awareness of your center space. You're invited here as well to notice what feels alive and resonant here. There's no good or bad or right or wrong. Just notice what feels present here. And as you're tuned into what feels present, you're invited here as well to take any movement. So maybe that is a twist at your hips. Maybe it's a stretch. Maybe there's even a sound that you feel like is rising to the surface. Inviting you to feel into and express whatever is moving within this pelvic and sacral area. And as you've tuned into this part of your body, I want to invite you to do a gentle scan of your body. Is there any part of you where you feel like there is a loud sensation or awareness? Is there a part of you that feels particularly tight? Or is there a part of you that feels a certain lightness? Just inviting you to scan your body and notice what is calling for your attention. And with whatever is calling your attention, I invite you to turn your awareness to it. You're invited to even move as whatever it is that feels alive and loud in you. You're even invited to, if you still feel a lot of thoughts running through your head, how can you even move as those thoughts? You don't have to push them away. How can you express them through your movement or breath in your body? And as you've tuned into what feels alive and resonant for you in your body, I want to invite this question for you to consider. Where do I sense possibility within me? Where do I sense possibility within me? There's nothing that you need to force or push, but maybe a word comes up, maybe a movement, maybe a sound or an image. Just inviting you to consider where there is even a thread or sliver of possibility inside of you. As you tune into that thread of possibility, I invite you to notice if there's a certain aspect of what's coming up that you want to root or anchor into. And as you do that, I invite you to notice if there are any final movements that your body wants to take. And as you take those final movements, maybe you also want to give a word of thanks to your body for the wisdom that your body has shown you, or even just for the way it has carried you to this moment in this day. And in your own time, when you feel ready, inviting you to gently open your eyes. And maybe you want to look around your respective space wherever you are to reorient. And when you feel ready, welcome, welcome back into the world. So thank you all for taking that time with us. Thank you, Erica, for being here and inviting you wherever you are to carry that moment and that breath with you throughout your day, and wishing you grounding and grace, and be gentle with you in these wildest of times. Take care.